Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, whether you're from Europe or from North America. And this is Piomaro speaking from Think Rinkers, talking to you from the beautiful city of Prague in the Czech Republic. So, James, yes, this is happening. It is happening indeed. And first of all, I'd like to ask all of you, where are you from? Let's see who is watching. I've seen some incredible people that are participating to this live streaming. And, I've seen data people, product management people, PIM professionals, as well as some very interesting executives that are really, really trying to figure out what is PIM? How can it help their business grow? And of course, there is a ton of reasons for that. Hello there, Stan. Great to see you joining us. So a ton of things that is very helpful for. And, obviously, hello, Anne from Denmark, Seattle here. Wonderful. So obviously, when you're thinking about these times, the digital age, if you want to sell your products and you're not online, you're pretty much off. So, but this is only the most obvious reason why you need to have your product information in check. There are a ton of other reasons, such as sustainability, because how do you know your product? How do you know if they're sustainable? Unless you have a PIM in place. And also, obviously, the so-called and so used term customer experience and customer centricity. Can you display products in the right manner to your customers? I was reading actually very recently a research that was saying that whenever the products are not displayed correctly on an e-commerce, customers tend to return them more often. And, if you have an e-commerce, you know very well it's a hell of an headache. So you want to make sure that your products are and the way they're displayed are representative of their quality and they're displayed to the customers in the best possible manner. But Esther from Nigeria and Stan, yes, here we are. And but as I was saying, today I have incredible guests. I have Juergen Mueller and Bissmeyer from Viamedici. Now, they have been working on PIM projects, helping organizations for decades, and they have seen it all, which is why today we will discuss why is PIM so important, but also we'll discuss the topic of the day, why do PIM projects fail? Because when they fail, it really hurts. And we will understand the many reasons behind it. We'll understand as well how to overcome the challenges and moving forward, achieving everything you wanted to achieve with your PIM project. So let's call up on stage Juergen and Al. Hello there, Juergen. Hi, Al. How are you today?
Hello, Pio. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm great. Thanks.
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Pio?
Doing very well. Great to have you here. Now we had many conversation about artificial intelligence. This time we're going to talk about PIM, which is very much something in your expertise. But to begin with, I'd like to ask you both to tell us something about yourself.
Juergen?
Maybe I start quickly. Yeah, so my name is Juergen Müller. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Viamedici. And as such, I'm in the PIM and MDM business now for more than 20 years. And before, I have some background in management consulting, so also a job where you see lots of organizations and what are the challenges and how to cope with them. And it was always, like for me, most interesting part really using technology to improve the situation and grow businesses, etc., based on innovation, based on technology. I think that's really a very interesting area and something very challenging, and especially at the moment where a lot is going on, like you mentioned it, AI, of course, but also as a kind of prerequisite for AI and also other activities in digitalization, data, everywhere data, how to manage it, how to handle it, how to do this best.
Absolutely.
I'm Al Bissmeyer. I'm the vice president of Viamedici, and I've been in the IT and software space for over 30 years, working with PIM and MDM and AI, as you know. I've actually been involved in a number of successful customer implementations that have actually won several different awards. So I'm pretty excited about talking about topics, as you know, and very excited about today's topic, which I think is very interesting, and I think it should be a good session.
Absolutely. Looking forward to get into all the challenges that are characteristics of PIM projects. But to begin with, why PIM? Why is it so important? What are the most compelling business cases for it?
Well, I think the big thing is I think PIM has been something that's been kind of out there for a while, but I think what really happened is that COVID really pushed the envelope for a lot of organizations and made them realize that they needed to go out and have product information and differentiation throughout their various sales channels, whether that be e-commerce or retailers or their distributors or whoever. And there was also a realization that the data that was being made available to folks was a differentiator, and that a lot of people were doing self-service. So it pushed a premium on having the right data in the right space. And if you read a number of different articles, they talk about how 90% of the data that when people go to do an initial search on a product, 90% of the respondents say that they don't get the right information on the first search or the first what they're looking for. So there's a premium and a push on having product information available so that people can make an assessment and make a determination as to what they're going to order or what they're going to, move forward with from a product perspective.
Excellent. Now, let's get into the topic of the day. Let's talk about why do PIM projects fail? What are the reasons?
Yeah, well, so it's it's actually a couple of things, and always the same that usually lead to a project fail. And what I would say, really, first and foremost, it is simply that right from the beginning there is no strategy. So it is just okay. We do a PIM project. And then we do it, but there's no real strategy, no real thought about what should be achieved. So what is a business case? What is a business value? What exactly do you want to achieve? Maybe also establish some KPIs or so that you really can measure the progress you have, etc. So an overall strategy and vision for the project right at the beginning, I think that is very, very important. And normally you would expect that this is just, so absolutely obvious that everybody has that when starting such a project, as it is quite some effort to do it. But really, it happens quite sometimes that it's simply not really there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Got it.
I think a lot of it has to do with actually a definition of what the PIM project is. And I think the real issue is that a lot of companies, when they go in, they buy into labels, PIM, product information. But what does that really mean? Am I doing product information for syndication? Am I doing product information for just getting it out for an e-commerce site? Am I getting product information so that everybody within the organization is, working off the same hymnal, and everybody that's within that supply chain or value chain for the product has accessibility to it? And what's the complexity associated with it? And where does it stop and start? Does it stop at the PLM system into the PIM system? Does it go into the building information management system? What is the requirement from a PIM perspective? And I think that's actually one of the reasons that a lot of the things have failed, because I think if you look at organizations, they haven't really defined, well, what is the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? Are we using PIM for an e-commerce? And I liken, kind of the differences. I was thinking about this the other day in terms of a stage. So if you think about a putting together a play with children, for example, when you're behind the stage and you go and you put a costume on them and you throw them out there on the stage, that's, like PIM for e-commerce. Here it is, it's out there, it's made available. But if you think about actually ordering the props, actually putting together the lighting and having everything that's associated with the ordering the costumes themselves and the makeup and all the other components. That's PIM for enterprise or e-commerce, and it's much more complex. And so the organizations really have to figure out, well, what are we doing with PIM? What is the purpose of PIM? What are we trying to do from a PIM perspective? And what artifacts and information do we have to have that's associated with this in order for it to be? So that's a foundational thing. Figuring out the scope and the requirement. Are we near the point of sale? Are we using it operationally? Are we using it for both? What are we doing with this PIM solution and initiative within our organization?
Exactly. So defining very much the purpose, asking ourselves the why, what is, really going beyond the idea that we need PIM just because others have a PIM system in place, but really understanding how it can benefit the organization and provide value. So here we have a question: why do we need PIM and applications of it? Like therefore, what should be the purpose for PIM? What do you think about that?
Well, go ahead, Juergen.
Yeah, well, I would say generally, of course, it's all about digitalization. And when you move things to the digital world, then you need to have kind of a full description. So everything available in the digital world. So if you want to, for example, establish processes related to your products in the digital world, you need information regarding your products that can be processed, exchanged, and so on and so on and so on. What everybody knows, of course, e-commerce. This means you digitalize the sales process and you digitalize the buying process. So what you expect? You expect kind of full description, feeling, everything regarding what you want to sell or what you want to buy. And this must be available. And so you need to manage it. It's similar in lots of other areas when it's with regard to other topics, when it's about digitalization. You need to put real things into the digital world. And for this, you need the data and you need to structure it. And this is also, in the end, the real basic thing you need a PIM for. And on top of this, you can then work your way through and do what you want.
I think one of the things is, so the reason companies need a PIM is because they need to have an ability to structure unstructured data and actually present the data that's associated with a product for consumption for people that are buying it or looking at it from a marketing perspective in terms of assessment. And I was laughing. One of the things Juergen told me a few months back, he was talking to a customer. He's like, "Hey, if I don't have product data, I don't have a company," basically. And it's really very true. I mean, no product, no company. And the reality is that organizations in the past, in many cases, have had homegrown things where they've had a database or they've got information in different pieces. The ERP systems don't allow for the unstructured data. And so what ends up happening is they throw people in spreadsheets and try to cobble this stuff together to manage their effort, and data is all over the place and it's inconsistent, and it creates real issues with regards to consistency of data, not only at the endpoint where people are assessing it in a web or e-commerce site, but even within the organization where a salesperson's using the wrong image or the wrong product or the wrong information for a specific account. I mean, there's all types of things that happen when you don't have good data and the right data.
Indeed. And perhaps you could have survived in the past with it, but as we live in the digital age, clearly you need to be able to display products in the best possible manner to the customer. As I was mentioning before, customers often return their product when they bought something that wasn't displayed properly, and that the expectations were not met, really. And that, of course, is a cost. It is indeed a cost. And it is indeed a shame if you've got an amazing product and you're not able to display it properly to the customer online, where you need to be nowadays, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it also gives you a lot of flexibility. It's of course about selling your products online, but it's also about having the flexibility to come up with maybe new business cases and new scenarios. Like if you, for example, want to go for personalization, individualization, your portfolio, this is a more complex scenario, difficult to establish a good buying and selling process. But if you have the data already available, it's easy. So you can do it. If you want to, go to new markets or new channels, same stuff. Could be a lot of work, could take months or even years to get there. And very often it's again about the data and language problems and all the other, those issues. So if you have your stuff right away available, then also this can be done much faster and you can significantly reduce time to market and things like that. So it's not only online sales, it's quality and communication, it's customer relationship and customer satisfaction, it's service in general, it's time to market, it's different ways to sell your products and design them. So it's a bunch of stuff that is related to it. And business is moving fast. It's really moving fast and faster and faster. So companies need the flexibility to establish new models quick and easy. And this is also something you need to consider right from the beginning, that whatever you do, you don't do something just for now, for one purpose. You want to establish an infrastructure that allows you to, meet your current needs, but also adjust quickly to changing situations and do things quickly and easily. And that is something people need to think about right from the beginning when establishing such a project.
Indeed, and let me say what you mentioned there, individualization, customization, you mentioned speed there as well. That's what the customer really wants. And that's how a company also needs to run internally. So yes, it might take an effort to establish all of that and structure it, but it is indeed where, that's indeed where the value is, where the organization can also kind of gain a sort of a competitive edge, acquiring these things, these characteristics. So there is a question from Michael. When preparing business case, cost of PIM needs to be estimated. How to present the cost of not having PIM effectively to management? Good one.
It's a very good question. I think there's two sides to this. There's the cost side and then there's the benefit side. So the cost side, actually, you look at how are we doing it today and what is the cost associated with having the personnel, the spreadsheets, the things that we're doing to manage the data, essentially. The flip side, though, is what is the cost of not, getting the order or the cost of not getting to market in time? Because what people find, obviously, is as you do new product introductions, you get certainly a market capture by getting the stuff out there. And you also, to your point, not only do you have return orders, but you lose an opportunity to sell something because you don't have the right data to actually do the sales side. So there's two sides to the coin. And there are calculators or ROI calculators that are out there to do PIM. But once again, this goes back to my original point. What type of PIM are we talking about here? Are we talking about operational PIM, where you're doing it for the whole organization to actually do operations and new product introductions and get information out for e-commerce essentially? Or are you doing e-commerce PIM that's more, just getting data, getting information out to syndicate or push out to a commerce site, these types of things. And so you really have to define and determine, what the scope of your effort is, and then build the business case around the effort, and also look at it on both sides of the coin, the cost side and the benefit side.
Indeed.
Yeah, maybe also adding to this topic, because this is really something we see very often, that it's about creating the business case at the beginning of the project. And so this means what does it cost, and especially what is the ROI, what is the benefit? And here it's really, of course, there are some cost savings involved, no doubt about that, like translation costs, data maintenance, other stuff. But again, if you want to create a good business case, this is again the point where you need to have a good strategy from the beginning. because it's really about what you want to achieve. And from here, actually, when you know what you want to achieve, from here, you can build a business case. And this actually works very well. Like, for example, if you want to achieve maybe reduction of time to market for your global markets, maybe by 50%, not unrealistic. It's actually a very realistic number. So many actually go even for more, like 70% or something. Say 50% reduction time to market. Okay, so how does this now translate to additional revenue, to additional profit, maybe also be cost saving, etc., and how to come up with the numbers. And so you establish some goals, like this one, for example. Maybe another one would be recommending spare parts and things like that directly as a bundle with your products. Maybe not possible today, difficult to do for a user and self-service process, etc. So you come up with some different topics and goals you want to achieve, and then think about what are the different business units and departments that are affected by it, and then discuss it with the heads of those departments. Like, look, when I reduce time to market by 50%, what do you think does it mean to your market? Can you sell more? What does it mean in terms of additional revenue? Would you agree that we can maybe just with this one benefit, maybe increase overall revenue, say by 20%. And then you can negotiate this with the different managers of the different regions and countries. You can come up with a result. Then you also have the backing, because they want it. They want this. If it's a clear benefit for them, they absolutely want it. And if they want it, then you have momentum and you have a business case. And this way, really establishing the criteria, who is affected, where will it probably bring some benefits, and then discuss with the owners of those areas and units and kind of negotiate the expected benefit and come up with the numbers. So that's a very good way to do it. And it doesn't take so long. It doesn't take so long. It's a couple of days and done. It's not like it takes months.
Very good. Very good. Along this very line of thought, there is another question. And by the way, many questions are coming. We're going to answer all of them. So there is a very good question here. Any good advice to get stakeholders on board, buying, marketing, etc., and any good advice for preparation process?
Yeah, I think getting stakeholders on board, again, relates to what I was already saying. Tell them what they get from it. Tell them about their benefits, and you get them on board. So that's the easiest way. Tell them this is your benefit. You know, if you're responsible for e-commerce and e-business, what you get is you have immediately at your fingertip, you have perfect data. You can do whatever you want. You can build the channels as you like, everything. You don't need to run after your data anymore. You just get it. You get it in all the languages you want it, done. So like this, do you want it? What do you have from it? And so on. So you can build your business case, your return on invest calculation, and at the same time, you motivate the people and you win the stakeholders for you. I think that's something you can really kind of merge together and do all in one.
Yeah, indeed. The good old what's in it for them question, yeah.
The why.
Yes.
It's the why. You need a why on all these projects, and you need to have the benefit and the why. So even the people that are doing the implementation of the project, the people that are doing the data stewardship around the project, the people that are actually marketing and selling, everyone needs to understand what is the purpose and why are we doing this, and what is the benefit to the organization, and what is the benefit to me on an individual basis. And that those are the things that need to be really pushed. And for people to have a general understanding of. I think this is a really good question. I think one of the things that I think is out there is, and we've talked about this internally a lot. In the past, a lot of these projects and things were kind of looked at from an IT perspective. So IT drove it. And then now you're seeing more marketing and e-commerce and sales driving these types of things. And so in order for it to really be effective, you need both entities, because IT understands what lifting is required to actually manage the data and consolidate the data and master the data, if you will. And then the business knows what they want to do in terms of presenting the information to the consumer. And so you need to have those groups working together. And once again, it goes back to what we were talking about: scope, focus. What is the what are we going to do with this project? And I think the other thing too, and this is very important, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, is incremental wins. So you don't have to boil the ocean right away. You can start out with a division, an area, and gain success, and then incrementally build upon that. And as you roll it out to other parts of the organization, other divisions, other entities globally, go in, define it, get it working, and then have success and build upon that success. And then the business sees a win, they see a benefit, and they're able to expand upon it.
Very good. I fully agree with it. Sometimes you get stuck in a project that aims, as you said, at boiling the ocean, really. And by the time you're done with it, if you're ever done with it, people even forgot what it was about. And they're not even going to use the results of that project that happened. So yes, definitely incremental steps. It's something we hear often, that not doing that, having that approach, is a pretty bad way to go about it. Now, we have actually a question very much in line with our previous LinkedIn sessions. Do you think AI could impact digital commerce and PIM, and how could it potentially affect?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you are.
I was going to say it definitely did. I mean, as we've mentioned in our previous sessions, I mean, so there's AI is really taking over. We're seeing it. And one of the things that's interesting, obviously, is we've been working with AI, and we have, a number of AI implementations and solution sets that we've encompassed. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we have a user group where 65 of our customers are getting together, and they're talking about localization or automatic data translation using AI with our solution set, and have the success they've had with that. So there are elements of AI that are proven there and very implementable, and you get results from. And then there's emerging stuff, obviously, with ChatGPT and auto translation and things that are going on with regards to content. And what's important there, as I've said in some previous presentations and stuff, is it's about taxonomy. It's about having good data so that you can optimize the use of AI for messaging and content. And so companies can't get away from data governance. They can get away from having good data internally to actually optimize the use of AI. But will it change things? No question. It's already changing things, and it's going to continue to change things.
Indeed. And here's another comment from Muna. Such a common issue with a solution that deals with such a fundamental foundational need, definition of a product. It's always overwhelming to justify and invest in what seems to be just another system. Now, actually, we discussed one of the predominant reasons seems to be a missing strategy in the beginning, a difficulty in defining an initial purpose and understanding the why behind starting the project. But we also had a poll a couple of weeks ago to really understand from the industry what people think and what people experience as the main reasons why PIM projects fail. So we had unclear strategy, wrong software for the job, bad data foundations, and unrealistic expectations. Now, bad data foundations actually won at 45% of the answers in the poll. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is definitively one of the key problems. So not necessarily the bad data foundation right at the beginning, because if this is simply the situation, then this is the situation. So this does not necessarily mean that your project will fail. But Poor data is something we see very often, and poor data together with a poor data migration plan, this is a huge risk. Poor data also means you, especially if you have large portfolios, so a lot of data and poor quality, and maybe lots of different data sources need to kind of merge together, overlapping things, lots of errors and things like that. So what you still need to keep in mind, you need to achieve first results quickly. So you cannot come up with a project that takes maybe 1 or 2 years in order to prepare your data, because then you lost everybody in your company. This means you need to pay even more attention to focus, maybe focusing on a certain business unit or certain market, certain region or whatever, get it, a little bit smaller in size, and make sure that you still get first productive business results within 3 to 6 months, and come up with a good strategy here. Because what you also don't want to have, you don't want to have all that poor data in your PIM system and then permanently work with it. So you need to improve it. You need to get it to some good quality level. But this is possible. But it's really one of the main reasons that projects get in trouble right at the beginning, that there are no resources planned for this effort, that maybe there's not even an idea where the data is located. If you're a global company, have lots of different business units all over, also no effort, no time, nothing considered in order to fix this issue at the beginning. And then it's kind of, oh, suddenly there's a problem. What do we do now? Then it really becomes a problem. But if you plan for it, it can be handled. So it simply requires attention.
I had a little bit of a different, when I looked at the results, I was actually very surprised, and I did some reflection on the results, and I actually kind of disagree with some of them to some extent, but I think it might be because of a lack of understanding. So I think it's a combination of having the wrong data or the foundational data, but also the software. But I'll use some analogies. I like to use analogies, but think of a truck. Basically, you have to move something from one point to another, and so if you have to move a ton of sand, I'm going to use a pickup truck or 10 tons of sand. It's a dump truck versus a pickup truck. Obviously, dump truck one trip, pickup truck 10 trips. And so what happens a lot of times is certainly organizations don't know where their data is. And certainly, there's complexity of the data. They need to define a data model. There's all types of things that have to happen. But you need to know what tool you're going to use to the management of that data. For example, if I'm doing something and the data is already there and it's a simple format, then maybe I can use a pickup truck or a piece of software that's relatively, basic. If I need to actually do something that's much more complex and look at, interrelationships of products to, reference data, inheritance of that data, actually, bring the data in and actually have a workflow that's associated with it and actually master the data and these types of things, then you need a dump truck. And so really what it comes down to is looking at what's the data set and what are the tool sets that are needed to go back to what we talked about when we opened up the original goal. Are we using PIM for operational purposes and in concert with e-commerce? Are we using it just for e-commerce? Are we using it, where are we using it within the continuum? And what is the requirement? And then what tool set do I need for that requirement? So I think there's a little bit of a blending there that goes on between, foundational data and the software itself, because, on a lot of these things, I've always laughed when I talk to customers. It's like, can I get from point A to point B? Well, if you give me enough time and enough money, you can put a man on the moon. It doesn't matter starting from scratch, right? Or if you have an inferior software product, you can do custom code and you can get from here to there very easily. And so it's, what is my requirement? What is the scope of effort that I have and that I need to achieve? And then I can determine a tool set that'll allow me to address it, whether it's something that I configure and, can actually, use to get from here to there and ingest, or if it's something that, I need to make modifications to get from here to there. And that affects the timing of the project, the effort of the teams that are associated with it, all types of things. So these are things to consider, and these are a lot of the reasons that these projects fail, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this poll could also be read in a different way. Meaning, when you look at the other reasons, right? Unclear strategy, wrong software, unrealistic expectations, they are linked because, of course, when the strategy, as we said, is not there, when the expectations are just, again, the strategy is such that the expectation is just out there and detached, and then you get the wrong software. There is a kind of a connection. So you sort of have to have the strategy and you have to have the expectation to choose the software. But ultimately, you do need a tool that does the job you establish in the strategy and in the expectations. So this is where, when you count the three that are not the bad data foundation, the result is actually 55%. So yes, they're interconnected, but this is the thing about reading polls in a different manner, because again, you need you need the preparation work, but then it's the tool that does that gets the job done and is selected based on the preparation work that is indeed necessary. What do you think?
Right, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think it's still 2 points missing. So I think we're still missing what is also very important: workflow and processes. So this is also key, because PIM is not a one-time effort; it's a continuous process. So you set up the system, you set up the processes, and you improve the data initially, build your interfaces and everything, and then you must really ensure that the data is permanently maintained in a good way, because otherwise you end up with a mess again, and this is what you don't want. So it's also really a lot about establishing good workflows and processes. And again, most companies today have global business operations. So this is not so easy, because PIM is close to marketing and sales, so it's close to your markets and the different regions, the different languages, everything. So it's a lot of people involved, either in the maintenance process, but also as a user of the data. But they might also influence the data, because they might want to get some additional information, add some additional stuff, which is relevant to their region or a certain channel or a certain market. So it's really a lot of people who are involved, and you need to establish the process in a way that it's, again, easy to handle. So not over-engineered, not over-complicated at all. So that's a very bad idea. Start with very simple processes, but establish them in the right way, get people motivated, etc. And so this is also quite some challenge. And again, it's simply important that you're aware of this, that it's a long-term effort, and it's kind of almost a philosophy of how you work in a company, so that you simply pay attention to data.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about workflow and processes, then we are already close to the next point. What I think is, again, also very important, and this is change management and communication, because it's all about the people. And people who are working with a PIM, is it the engineers, the product managers who create the data initially, marketing departments, etc. All of them have a lot of other stuff to do as well. They are very important for a company, usually have specific skills, know the market, know the portfolio. So it is important, first, that they know what it is all about. So we were talking about this initially, that it's important, to get the stakeholders and so on. But again, not only at the beginning. So really great projects establish a communication and promotion plan, which they run throughout the whole project to make sure that everybody is permanently involved and knows exactly what the plan is, what the idea is, what should be achieved, what his role is in the whole thing. And this is really great. And again, also not so difficult to achieve. It's just, you need to think about it, that people want to know what they work for and what something is about. And this is very important. with regard to PIM projects.
100%.
I just saw a good question. Unfortunately, it flashed and then it went away, but the gentleman had written something about, there it is, requirements, processes, and goals versus, having a vendor come in. And I think, really and truly, and this to piggyback upon what, Juergen just said, if you really look at PIM projects, and it's any project, but really PIM projects in particular, someone earlier had talked about the definition of product and all those types of things. And I think, obviously you need the right tool, which we just talked about. Selecting the right tool is key. But what's very key for these projects, I think it's the most important thing, is you need investment by the personnel who understand their products and the information that they have. And it's not just the definition and the information around the product, which ultimately become the data model associated with it, but also where's the data coming from? Is it in the spreadsheet in under someone's desk? Is it in an ERP or PLM system? Is it in a database somewhere? How are we aggregating and bringing this stuff together and mastering it essentially? And then what are the key pieces of data that are required and actually helping the project throughout the project? So it's not enough to have executive sponsorship or buy-in from the top, although that's extremely important. It's very important to have the knowledge experts internally to be able to actually define the product information and then being able to apply it to the tool. So as you see, this is, the reason PIM projects and some of these projects fail is because they're complex. You need the right tool, you need to know the right scope, you need to know your strategy, you need to have the right people invested throughout the process. There's a lot of different components that come together. It's people, processes, and technology, obviously, that are going to get you to the end game. But when you do have the right people involved, they're very successful, and the return on investment is huge. As Juergen gave some citations that we see just in the new product introduction side.
Yeah, it must be very much a company-wide effort, and one where everyone feels part of it.
Right.
And as Juergen mentioned, change management is a huge portion of this, as well as workflow and processes, and who should be involved in those approval processes, and what are the stage gates? Are parts of it automated? Are parts of it manual? Is it required secondary review? These types of things need to be part of that process. So to answer this question, I would not turn it over to a vendor in terms of recommendation. I would obviously get insights from vendors, but I would not rely on a vendor to say, hey, this is what you do. Because you need to know what you want to do. You need to know what your scope and effort is, and then you need to determine the tools and the processes as part of that. Now, that doesn't mean you don't bring in an expert from an implementation perspective, as well as someone to give some guidance as to what tool sets should be used for the specific workload that you're addressing. That is a requirement, but the organizations have to get their heads around this for it to be successful. The company has to own it. They can't flip it over the wall and hope that it's going to be successful. Those are always a failure. Almost, not always, but most always. Let's just put it that way.
Very good. Now, going back to the change management topic, who do you think should champion this change? Who should be the champion in this discussion? Is that the person that comes from a specific department with a profession? What have you personally observed in your experience?
Well, I think it's interesting. Okay, so I think there's two aspects to this. One is, when you look at the business sponsor, if it's marketing as an example, then there needs to be a project manager that's actually pushing it and kind of promoting the benefit and what's going on from a solutioning perspective. But the other side is IT. IT is aggregating, bringing the data together, working on mastering it, working on the data model, all these types of things. And I think what really has to happen in order to have a cohesive solution is you need to have the marketing team relying and believing in IT and working with IT to get it, because a lot of times IT can see, hey, this tool, if applied appropriately, will get you this benefit, and they know what's involved in getting it, whether it's configuration or development or whatever they have to do to get it there. And so that's really what creates the success is having the IT elements and having the the promotion of the information, and then also having the actual users involved in the process. Giving input into the application that's being developed, because it's going to be the tool that they're using. So obviously, when you feel like you've contributed to the development of the tool and you provide your input, you're going to be more likely to use it when it comes time to actually use it for the benefit that it's intended for. And Juergen, I'm sorry I jumped all over that, but you can certainly take some ideas. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Absolutely.
Okay, very good. We have also, yeah, I see here regarding again changes, resistant to change, resistant to changes in the market or to implement processes. So, what are the most essential initiatives for approaching such a barrier, such a the resistance to change that we so often see in companies and in human nature as well?
Yeah. So it's again. So it's first, of course, it's important that in the core team, and also with the overall sponsor, so at best somebody, the top management of the company, there's a common understanding that implementing a PIM project means change. So if this understanding is not there in the core team, then we have a problem right from the beginning. Then better work on this before you start with the project. So this is important, that there's a common understanding that this will involve change. And wherever you change things, there's also some resistance to it. This is simply just normal. So people don't want to change if they do not know exactly what is coming, they're a little bit unsure, insecure, things like that. They simply don't want it. They're used to certain ways of doing things for many years. So it's just normal. You have this always. So this is really a lot. First, of course, you need to have this in the core team, the common understanding that it is about change. Then you need to have a lot in careful communication, that people really understand what it's about, why we do it, what does it mean, why you have to change your job, why you have to change, not your job, but the way you do your job, the way you do your work, why you have to change all these things. Then it requires assistance, like training, coaching, etc. And when we were discussing these champions, etc., at best you have some directly in the different business units affected, in the different divisions affected. So not just one, several in all those divisions and units that are involved, because they are usually trusted by the other people in the same division and the same unit. So that's a completely different communications, and when you do it maybe more centrally, so you can communicate this and manage it in more decentralized way. That's much better and easier to do. And they can again help and create a level of trust. And so the whole combination of communication, training, coaching, champions, super users, direct support, regional support, and communication, this together usually works very well.
Very good. And I think something we mentioned before about incremental changes, right? To do steps that are smaller and are not too difficult to walk also helps, because if an organization needs to get into a project and wait for several millions and several years to see anything coming out of it, it's definitely a bigger change you're asking for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's also a little bit about setting the system up in a way that people can handle it. So it's also a little bit about the skill set. So it's not just you just in a more or less theoretical world, you design your process and everything, and this is not ideal, but you completely forget about the people who are involved and maybe their skill set, which is also important. So this needs to be considered. They need to be involved in an early stage, and then when maybe you have in certain positions people who are very technical, then it's okay if they if they are using more technical tools and things like that. In other units, you have people who don't have that skills, so they want to have things more easier and easygoing. So a little bit different. So you need to adjust it a little bit and really check how people get along working with it, and if needed, work from both sides, improving skill sets, but also if needed, changing a little bit the process and the way you work with it, configuration, things like that.
Okay, okay, very good. So once you've done all of that, it's time for tools. Can you share some tips about, what to look for in a tool? Once you establish your strategy and so on, is there something, let's say, a hallmark of quality, or something to look at, some parameters?
Yeah, I think once you establish the strategy, of course, you need to think about your direct requirements. So what do you need? What do you want to do? What is your situation? And based on this, of course, you can then start to select the tools. I would really say there are some very general differences. So one is, of course, there are some tools out there that are more designed for certain purposes, like, for example, PIM for commerce. So solve one problem. And this is a problem that with many e-commerce platforms, the integrated product or article management is relatively poor. And so you can solve this problem by also having a PIM for commerce tool, and then from here, of course, also serve other platforms at the digital shelf. So that's one category of solutions. Another category is more the enterprise PIM solutions, which is more generic overall, typically more possibilities regarding system configuration, data modeling, things like that, and covering much more use cases. So PIM for commerce, yes, but also maybe several other use cases, including with engineering process, production process, things like that. All this matters as well. And so it's much more complete. And then we have the combination of PIM and MDM. So where you do not only manage one domain, but maybe also additional data domains, maybe your suppliers, maybe reference projects and things like that, and reference objects, and then links this information together, establish relationships easily in one solution instead of different solutions. So this, again, a little bit different category. So this is the main categories actually I see. And here it is really a little bit important at the beginning to think about what you really want to do and what you really need.
Understood. It kind of makes sense, though, to go with something that is, able to help with MDM as well as PIM, as we were talking about data foundations, and we were talking about, this initial problem that so often represents an obstacle.
Yeah, I think when you kind of look at companies, I think more and more enterprises on a global basis are starting to look at enterprise PIM as opposed to just the one-off departmental type things. I think what's happened is companies realize that there's economies and efficiencies for the workforce, all the data stewards to work with the same tool set. I think they're looking at certain things around workflow and approval processes that are associated. They're looking at languages and localization of the product content. They're looking at, those types of things. So I think there's been more of a push recently to kind of look at how do we do this globally. And then to Juergen's point, not only doing the PIM component, but actually mastering the data and moving into MDM componentry. I think that's another thing that you're seeing. The other thing too, just from a technical, it's maybe a little too technical, but I think when looking and assessing tools, you want to look at tools that, first of all, can they scale and can they handle your product volume? Can they handle the complexity? Do they have the real-time responsiveness of things? These are things that should be top of the mind for people when they're kind of assessing some of these things relative to the scope of their effort. The other thing that you want to look at is, do they have a dynamic data model or not? Can you make changes to your product definition on the fly without having to shut down the system or go do coding or customization. So is it a configurable solution set, or is it a solution set that requires customization or coding and these types of things? And so there's a number of things that you want to, in terms of checkboxes that you would want to look at within those different segments that you're going to mention, the e-commerce or PIM for commerce versus PIM for operations and commerce or enterprise versus kind of like PIM and MDM and mastering the data, moving into additional domains for an organization. But even within those different data sets, you want to look at these types of functionality and determine whether that functionality is needed for the scope and effort that you're trying to, address within the organization.
Yeah. Now back to the change management aspect. There's another really good comment here from Kirsten about the cultural aspect that should not be underestimated. You need strong project leaders and product owners on customer side to drive the project. Because yes, many PIM and MDM projects are international, aren't they?
Yes, I mean, many of our customers are international. They have 40 to 50 languages that they're managing. It's really localization. And I think there's really two things that help with this. Okay, one is certainly you have the ability to auto translate and work on different regions, but I think also having consistency of resources across. So if you're dealing with a large implementer, you can actually have a consistent project person working across the globe on these different things as it's being rolled out. We have a number of customers where we do that. We have a team, or we work with a partner, and they actually roll these things out, and then they can bring the learnings from one region to another region, but also address the nuances of that new region. So you want to be able to do that, and you also want to make sure, going back to tools, that the tool set that you have allows you to inherent the data, but then also localize it and do things, for a specific region, whether that be price data, translation, or, content data, or anything that's associated with, so you have continuity, across the globe, and have a federated, solution set, which is another thing. You want obviously, as I mentioned at one point with the customer, no product, it means no company. You need to be operational. That's another thing we're seeing. We're seeing more and more, where PIM is an operational real-time system that's required, and if it goes down, then your business is in trouble. So you need to make sure that you have a very strong technical foundation and infrastructure, or using cloud application to address this, and that it's available and ready to rock and roll.
Well, you're absolutely right. No products, no company. And without product information, I mean, in 2023, it doesn't really work, does it?
No. And if you look at the online, I was just looking with Thanksgiving and Black Friday and Cyber Monday, the number of online sales. I mean, you look at it was phenomenal, and it just shows the consumers globally are buying online. It's all digital, period. So if you don't have this stuff in order, you're looking behind. You're behind, and you need to get there.
And actually, it was also interesting. So these moments are really good because it can really, there's still big differences. So the buying experience, there's still big differences out there. At some e-commerce platforms and some vendors, absolutely great implementation, fantastic. Get immediately this information you want, you find what you need. Buying process, smooth, easy, perfect. And then others, it's really a pain. So it's really big differences, and when you experience it yourself, it's absolutely clear where your preference is for the future. You don't want to go anymore to those places where you really have just a lot of trouble to buy something. You don't want to have that, I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. And the fact that we have so many channels, so many markets, more and more complex portfolios, makes this issue even more important. Like Al was saying before, we see a clear trend when it's about PIM towards enterprise PIM, so enterprise wide rollouts, usage, and application, and also a clear trend towards more operational and also transactional usage. So really directly involved in the processes, not just providing the data, and that's it. So that's a very clear trend.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that you bring that up about the Black Friday, because yes, the competition is absolutely brutal. You know,
Yeah.
everyone is doing it, but that is why you need to be, you need to be at the top of your game in this case, because it's no longer a matter of price. Might think that it's just a matter of price, that you dump the price 55 instead of 50, but no, it's about the user experience. The
No,
competition.
you're exactly right. As a matter of fact, it's interesting because I was talking to some brand people recently, and the brands in many respects are losing out. If you think about it, and I call this being Amazoned. I think I've talked about this before, but basically, what people are looking for is, can I get it tomorrow or this afternoon, and does it fulfill my need? And so it's really, that requires the right content. It has the right availability. So it's a combination of, orderability and the information that's associated with it, and usually it has something to do with reviews as well. And so, having that data available is key, and it's becoming more key. And to Juergen's point, everyone's going digital, so you got to have the right data, and it has to be in time. And another thing that we didn't even talk about with regards to this is configuration. We're seeing more and more customization where companies are wanting, or end consumers, both in B2B and B2C, where they want to be able to modify or configure their products in lot sizes of one specific to their need. And that's another PIM thing that we're seeing, that where you can configure your products. And once again, that comes back to the scope. What's our goal? What are we trying to do? What's the differentiation? What's the business benefit? Do we want a configurable product? Yes or no? Do we want to do self-service? Yes or no? Do we want to operationalize this? Yes or no? I mean, these are the types of things that need to be considered.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, we're at 1 hour here, and we just began scratching the surface. We should do it again.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Me too.
There is a lot to talk about, because again, we're just talked about some of the issues and the projects, but the upside of stepping up in terms of product information are massive. And again, also here we just started scratching the surface. There is, there is also other topics related to sustainability and so on that are really worth investigating, as well as the role of AI. So I'm sure that the next time we'll be up and live, we'll have a lot to discuss about PIM and about artificial intelligence, or who knows what else.
Yes, we see most of our customers, we use lots of different domains. They start out with product, they move to customer, they look at customer relative to product, they look at AI relative to product. There's all types of topics that we can get into for sure.
Very good. Very good. Now, until we meet next time, how can people find out more about you, about Viamedici? Where should they go?
Well, they can go to viamedici.com. That's obviously our website. They can reach out to us directly. We'll put our contact information in the thing, in the feed that it's with this session. We're having two sessions actually coming up. We have a session next week on the 6th where we'll actually do a demo. It's an open demo. You can come in and just look at the product set and get a sense of some of the things we're talking about. And then we're actually doing another session where we're talking about the building supply industry on the 14th. We have tons of companies within the building supply chain that are viewing it, from manufacturers all the way to contractors. And, they use PIM for project management, building information management, all types of things. So you can sign up for that session as well. But those are two upcoming sessions that are right around the corner. And then feel free to reach out to us directly and/or go to our website for self-service. And we're looking forward to the next session as well. Appreciate everybody attending.
Very good. Likewise, I mean, great questions. Peter, thank you for being with us. And I believe there will be the links to attend the sessions then in the description, in the comments.
Yes.
So to everyone who wants to learn more and just figure out, what is the Viamedici software about and how it can be helpful once you've defined the purpose and everything else, and how it can bring the company organizations to the next level. So yeah, it will be there. I also want to thank Sarah here, and again, it's always a pleasure to speak to both of you. It's been very insightful, and I really look forward to the next time. Juergen, I had a blast, great time.
Thank you, Pio. It was great, as always. And appreciate the audience participation and questions. They were really good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pio. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Thank you. Have all a fantastic continuation of your day. Until next time.